William Taft was our 27th president when a 19-year-old Sammy Wright and an 18-year-old Eva were legally hitched in Limestone County in 1909. At this time last year, the Wrights, on their 75th wedding anniversary, had lived in the same house 70 of their 75 years together. And Eva Wright, then at 93, had never been sick, much less in the hospital. But she did have a fond memory of her unfortunate wedding night.
We went to sleep. Oh, they were drunk.
Does that make you mad?
Well, no, I wasn't mad. I just
Disappointed.
disappointed.
Well, that was a year ago on the Wrights' 75th wedding anniversary. Today, September 12th, the Wrights celebrated their 76th wedding anniversary. But for the first time in her 94 years, Mrs. Wright is in the hospital. Yesterday, the Wrights celebrated their 76th wedding anniversary, this time at the Athens Limestone Hospital. While Eva Wright was feeling much better and hoping to go home, the 95-year-old Sammy was as spry as ever and just as much in love with his sweetheart as the first day he met her.
First time I ever seen her, she was 12 and I was 14. I says, right there, my gal. And 5 years later, we were married. That's all to it.
Eva and Sammy Wright were already looking forward to celebrating their 77th wedding anniversary. Hopefully, it won't be in the hospital. In Athens, I'm your country rover, Jamie Cooper. To some, 11-year-old Holly Sparks has the ugliest pet in town. And the sad truth is, she does. But her jet black poodle, E.T., is so ugly, he's actually cute. Born in a litter of 5, E.T. was the only one not to have all his hair. The other 4 full-blooded poodles born to Mother Molly were all sold. But E.T., named for the alien movie character who was also bald, has become a permanent member of the Sparks family, even though lots of folks have wanted to buy him.
And Mama couldn't give this dog away because money can't buy everything. We have to take him somewhere and everything to the grocery store. Everybody stares at us and laughs and asks what's wrong with him and why he's bald-headed and everything like that.
What do you think about E.T.?
I think he's pretty cute myself.
Not only is E.T.'s head bald, but so are his legs, ears, and stomach. And according to the vet who examined him, E.T. is perfectly healthy, and his baldness is just a rare occurrence. Now, this may be hard to believe, but E.T. right now is better looking than he ever has been, and that ain't saying a whole lot. I guess bald is indeed beautiful. Right, Holly? Right. Indicator, I'm your country rover. Eat your heart out, Kojak. Jamie Cooper.
I like that.
Go get him, E.T. John Capobanco is a one-of-a-kind professional racer. Now, he's not exactly a Darrell Waldrop or a Bill Elliott, but his racing skills do attract quite a crowd. One sure thing about Capobanco, he goes whole hog into his sport. Actually, Capobanco is the world's only professional racing pig trainer. What started in Florida several months ago is now, like bacon in the frying pan, and something everyone seems to like. Pigs like to race, you think?
Oh, yeah, they really enjoy it.
How can you tell?
Oh, you watch them when they run, you'll know. They've got, each one has a personality, and they enjoy it. They're ready to go.
The pigs start training at 4 weeks old and participate in their first race at 7 weeks. At 5 months, the swifty little porkers retire, not to the dinner table, but to the breeding stables in Florida. The pigs, racing in pursuit of an Oreo cookie, run at about 15 miles per hour in the 150-foot specially designed race course. Top time for one of Swinedom's swiftest has been 6 seconds flat. The snout-to-snout competition, for the first time ever in Alabama, is being held this week at the North Alabama State Fair. Whether or not pig racing catches on as a major sport is yet to be determined. Holding them's hard enough. Take him back in there. But if you're one of those who likes a sport with this share of hams, then pig racing may be for you.
You okay in there? It's the North Alabama Fair. Did you make it?
Oh, yeah, we made it.
Put your over Jamie Cooper.
J.V. and Monroe Miller, last cousins by blood, are just two of a handful of old-timers who specialize in the making of some of the best-tasting stuff you've ever put in your mouth. Sand Mountain sorghum syrup. Millers are the owners and operators of Miller's Sand Mountain Sorghum in Boaz, which just happens to be one of the only sorghum processing plants in Alabama. The sorghum plant also doubles as somewhat of a tourist attraction. Last year, folks from 44 states paid the Millers a visit. Squeezing the juice from the sorghum cane and cooking it for several hours at 225 degrees with nothing added is basically the entire process, if you know what you're doing.
Yes, sir. You better know what you're doing. If you don't, you'll burn it.
Sorghum syrup can be used on just about anything, at least according to sorghum lovers J.V. Miller and O.H. Dempsey.
You need sorghum with biscuit, butter, biscuit and ham, biscuit and sausage. Put it on your turnip greens, your collard greens, your green beans, dried peas. It's good for you. Put the iron in your blood. Put spittericum in you. That'll give you pep when nothing else won't.
If you're one of those few that have never tasted Sand Mountain sorghum, I'm getting this all over me, you don't know what you're missing because it's good, right?
Finger licking good.
All right. In Boaz, I'm your country rover, Jamie Cooper.
Friday afternoon, things were certainly looking up in the small Tennessee town of Park City. Folks had gathered to gawk at 5'5" Jerry Raby, a small man with a big idea. Raby, music director for WEKR Radio, was getting things in order for what would be his home for possibly several weeks, a 3x6 plywood platform. Situated 20 feet above the ground in the parking lot of Carpet Liquidators, Raby's high-rise apartment was equipped with all the essentials, from a porta potty to a color television. Once on the ground before his final ascent, Raby entertained the crowd with a rocky version of Rocky Top.
I've always been told out at the station that I've been trying to get ahead, and I'm on the ladder to success. And one of the things they were saying that I was being elevated to a new position this week, and I was getting a raise.
8, 7, 6.
Finally, the countdown to the top and time to get Raby in his 18-square-foot home, which he is not to leave until his final day, whenever that may be. The purpose of the event was to draw attention to the town of Park City and high hopes of attracting new business.
Jerry Raven has no intentions of setting a Guinness Book of Records. After all, the Guinness Book of Records for something like this is 399 days, and that's about 390 days longer than he plans on staying atop Park City, Tennessee.
In Park City, Tennessee, I'm your country rover, Jamie Cooper. Bill Lane is a man capable of wearing many hats, literally. For not only is Bill Lane a hat collector, he has over 200, 99% have never been worn. Lane is also known as being somewhat musically talented. Lane claims he picked up playing the harmonica one cold night in Korea. Since then, the 52-year-old Lane has suffered 7 heart attacks, plus had triple bypass heart surgery. And that tends to cause Lane to be a bit short-winded, but not enough to keep him from winning the Albertville Freedom Days whistle-off this past July 4th. Because of the contest, Lane this weekend goes to Carson City, Nevada to compete with the big boys in the International Whistle-Off.
I don't know if you could call it a talent, but I enjoy doing it. It relaxes you. You know, if you're by yourself or out working or something, you start whistling and kind of help pass the time and breaks up the monotony.
Almost messed me up. I feel like a road trotter. Bill Lane's not going to Carson City, Nevada this weekend with any high hopes of winning the International Whistle Contest. But then again, he's not going up there just to waste a lot of hot air either. Are you, Bill? And Boaz, I'm your country rover, Jamie Cooper.
Sunrise in Morgan County. Peaceful, colorful, and delightful. And for 27-year-old Mark Clement, a perfect morning to enjoy his hobby. Clement is a hooter, and a good one at that. He talks with owls.
I love it. Been doing it roughly really a year now since I've been up here in Huntsville, because we've got a lot more owls up here. And there's a lot of people that are willing to, you know, kind of a late night town like Huntsville, to keep out of trouble. I just take them up on the mountain and go out hooting.
You like talking to owls?
Yeah, no doubt. It's kind of fun just to get out here, and these are, of course, you call them wild animals or whatever. Get out here and just, I don't know if I'm communicating to them, but just have them respond back and forth like that is, it's a thrill to me.
It's not unusual to find Clement, when he's not a supervisor at Chrysler, in some secluded area at sunrise or sunset 3 or 4 days a week, partaking in his favorite pastime.
Is this what you call an old-fashioned hootenanny?
That's right. Out here just having a good time out in the woods, nothing like it.
From one hooter to another, I'm your country rover, Jamie Cooper, somewhere near Morgan City very early in the morning. See if he can hoot back to us one more time.
These two men, 71-year-old Elmus Edward Cox and 81-year-old George Hill, have never met, yet they share a history that dates back before the Civil War. In the years leading up to the Civil War, this very bell was rung every day at noon to call the slaves on the Cox Plantation into dinner. Owner of some 70 slaves in the Cox Plantation was Thomas Gale Amos Cox, grandfather of Elmus Edward. The Cox Plantation in those days covered several thousand acres. Today, on a few hundred acres, Elmus Edward lives where the old plantation once stood.
Well, as I remember, they used to have huts all around the farm here, and they called them nigger mammies that took care of the children, and one big man, he was in charge of everything. He had a house down there. And
after the Civil War, Thomas Cox gave his favorite slaves some land and money to go elsewhere. Some did, some didn't.
The slaves, they didn't want to be freed, I don't think. They were loved by my family, by my grandparents. They didn't have any hard times like people like to make believe. They were happy people.
When the Civil War ended, the dinner bell here was still rung every day at dinner, except there were no slaves to come. Most of the slaves had moved to a small community about 5 miles from here, now called Ridgeville.
Ridgeville is where George Hill has always called home. It was Hill's grandfather, John Cox, who was the slave overseer on the Cox Plantation. George Hill has a much different view on slavery.
You know, they sold slaves just like they sold horses and mules.
Friday night, we'll hear the story of George Hill. In Ridgeville, I'm your country rover, Jamie Cooper. When the Civil War ended, Thomas Cox owned the Cox Plantation in Etowah County. Wednesday, we met his descendant who still lives here.
But the slaves, they didn't want to be freed, I don't think. They were loved by my family, by my grandparents.
By contrast, this is where some descendants of the plantation slaves still live, Ridgeville. It's just down the road on land given to them by Thomas Cox after the war. Somewhere in this rundown old cemetery, John Cox is buried. He was a slave and overseer of all the slaves on the Cox Plantation. He was also the grandfather of this man, 81-year-old George Hill. Hill has his own views of slavery.
It was rough enough, according to what I heard, quite nuts of it. I didn't know anything about it, but I figured they had it pretty rough myself. because the thing of it is now, they just take a person away from, split up a family and do everything like that, sell the children, just like hogs or cows. Now, if that wasn't rough enough, what was rough? I don't think there's no Christianity in that, whatever.
One of the main buildings in the original slave town was a Macedonia Methodist church. It doubled as a one-room schoolhouse. The original building burned in the early 1900s. Well, this one was built about 9 years later.
This old church represents more than just a dilapidated old picturesque building. This church represents a big part of our history.
It was on this site that the Cox Plantation slaves first worshiped and studied together as free people, a people whose grandchildren still live here, a few miles away from the sound of the bell still standing on the former Cox Plantation. It was this bell that called the slaves to work in the fields, a solemn reminder of an oppressive era in Southern history. In Ridgeville, I'm your country rover, Jamie Cooper. It's known as the Athens Old Time Fiddlers Convention, and folks come from just about everywhere to lend an ear to the sweet sounds that float through the air on the beautiful Athens State College campus.
The Athens Old Time Fiddlers Convention is not just for fiddlers. It's for anybody, like all of us here who have a hankering for a foot-stomping good time. Right? Yeah! Yeah, boy.
If it sounded good, it was probably an Athens Saturday. From the spoons to crutches, too.
Play those pretty good, don't you?
Not the best, I guess.
For the past 19 years, young and old-timers alike have been converging in Athens to compete on stage. And while winning is important, it's certainly not the main tune at the Athens Old Time Fiddlers Convention.
What's the best part about coming to the Fiddlers Convention?
Everything good about it.
Everything.
See a lot of free women. That's what I come for, to see women.
In Athens, I'm your country rover, Jamie Cooper. Dot and Jack Padley don't exactly have a ponderosa, but on their 31-acre spread in Morgan City, the Padleys, however, are just a few feet short, literally, from being true horsemen.
Come on. Hee-haw! Hee-haw! Hee-haw!
The Padleys have perhaps the largest herd of Abyssinians in Alabama. The Padleys originally wanted a horse ranch, but somehow wound up with these little lovable creatures.
Well, we thought we were going to get into miniature horses and found an ad on these, and next thing we knew, we ended up with all of them, it seems.
Good are a mule like these?
Well, they eat, keep the grass down, that's about all. They're good pets, that's about it.
Are they good watchdogs?
Oh, they're pretty good. Anytime anybody comes up the driveway, we know it right away.
Why would somebody want a herd of these, or why do you and your wife want a herd of these?
Well, we're still not too sure that we do want a herd of them. We just got it. Once you get two of them, you just end up with a lot more.
The Abyssinian, full grown, only weighs 150 pounds and grows to about 34 inches. Strong enough to ride and pull a cart. They also make great pets. The Padleys have an overabundance of the little donkeys and have a few for sale. The price for an Abyssinian is around $150.
Now, I don't know whether or not the Abyssinians will ever take the place as being man's best friend, but then again, I don't think you'll see one of these chasing a car either. Will you, big boy? In Morgan City, have your country over? Get kind of heavy. Jamie Cooper.
Glenn Kilgore is not necessarily a religious man, yet he's probably been in more churches than most ministers. Kilgore is president of a somewhat unique business, Rainsville Church Pew Company. Started 27 years ago with 2 employees, today Rainsville Church Pew employs 40, and is one of the leading church pew makers in the nation, seating on the average 5 churches a week. Using Appalachian red oak, Rangeville Church Pew can outfit a church completely, with the furnishings guaranteed to last as long as the church. The church pews haven't changed a whole lot in looks over the years, but they have in comfort.
Say 30 years ago, 90% of them were solid wood, or solid oak, or solid pine, or some type of wood. But nowadays, I'd say 95% of them are upholstered seats and backs, with a small majority of them being just wood backs. Well, the reason for that is the comfort of it, and then they started putting, when carpet got real popular, upholstered furniture in churches got real popular.
One reason for the success of the Rangeville Church Pew Company is the fact that there are more churches per population in the southeast than any other part of the country. Recently, Rangeville Church Pew did the furnishings for a horse ranch chapel in Jupiter, Florida, the ranch owned by one Burt Reynolds.
One interesting fact about the church pew business, not once in the 27-year history of the Rangeville Church Pew Company have they received a bad check from a customer. I guess they know something. In Rangeville, I'm your country rover, Jamie Cooper.
Wilburn Kilgore doesn't mind being known as a lazy person. Actually, he's quite proud of his reputation. It's because of his laziness that Kilgore 2 years ago got into a business that suited his lifestyle perfectly, making socks. Not only did Kilgore make thousands of pairs of socks, but he also put a lot of mileage on them. For the past 2 years, Kilgore and his rolling mini sock mill traveled over 30,000 miles through 29 states, displaying his wares just about everywhere.
What do you know about making socks?
I reckon I know about everything about making socks.
How do you know so much?
Just smart, I reckon.
So how would you describe this business that you've been in for the past year or two?
Well, it's a business you can make money and see the country and take it easy.
Kilgore, with a century-old knitting machine, was and still is capable of making a sock while you watch in 2 minutes. A pair of his socks will cost $2. Kilgore claims he's retired now from the road and he'd like to sell his entire outfit for under $17,000.
If you're in the market for a new business, Wilburn Kilgore can sock it to you, literally. Kilgore also plans on opening a new business in Boaz called Socks Unlimited sometime soon. In Rangeville, I'm your country rover, Jamie Cooper.
Arnold Richardson is a man who doesn't have much going for him these days, and hasn't for the last couple of years. The 57-year-old Richardson, who looks much older, spends the majority of his time working at Lander's store in Hatton for $5 a day. The remainder of his time is spent here, at his home. Home for Arnold Richardson is this dilapidated old camper bus that sits behind a mobile home near Hatton. Richardson's home is certainly no palace. It's more a garbage dump with electricity. Single light brightens the dull surroundings, which include a television that doesn't work, a gas stove, a wood heater, and a couch that doubles as a bed. A bucket serves as the bathroom. Richardson, as well as his kittens, seem to find these antiquated surroundings quite comfortable. They have to. It's all they've got. But things haven't always been this bad. Richardson was once married and held a full-time job. Those were better years.
I'd like to have a condominium or something to live in. You know, a nice place to live.
Mm-hmm. Well, how'd you get in such a situation like this?
Well...
Drinking or?
No. I just messed around and got this way. That's one thing that I don't do is blame it on nobody else.
So who do you blame?
Blame myself.
Richardson lives on $79 a month in food stamps, and after suffering a stroke several years ago, claims he's almost completely disabled.
Arnold Richardson says he's about as far down on his luck as he can get. And the way he looks at things, well, they can only get better because they sure can't get any worse. In Hatton, I'm your country rover, Jamie Cooper.
For the first time in 73 years, the R.M. Landers Cotton Gin in downtown Hatton is silent this time of year. The gin, however, is about the only thing not working these days at R.M. Landers General Merchandise. In business since the early 1900s, Landers' store, which happens to sell just about everything, is truly a Lawrence County landmark. Operated the past 42 years by R.M. Landers Jr., the store is indeed somewhat unique. Not only does the store carry such items as shirts and shoes and number 1, 2, and 3 wash tubs, but it's also one of the few places where you can find a commonette.
Anyhow, before they had the bathrooms, they used it for a bathroom at night.
Do you sell many of those?
Oh, yes. We sell about 6 or 8 a year.
Where else could you find one of those these days?
I don't know. I couldn't tell you.
Kirby Arlander not only has been known to fry fish here from time to time, he's also a $2 barber. Haircuts available Saturdays only.
Can't mix this, cooking, cutting hair up. You get hair and you cooking.
Haircuts aren't the only things offered at R.M. Landers. So is music, at least when the preacher shows up. The piano's for sale for $250.
You're looking for the deal of a lifetime on an indoor toilet on this commonette right here. R.M. Landers is one of the few places you can find one, right?
I guess.
You ever used one of these?
Yes, sir.
How'd it feel?
There we go. Felt pretty good when you're needing it. Is that good enough?
Kept you from going out of snow.
Yeah.
In Hatton, over your country rover, Jamie Cooper. So they're pretty comfortable?
It's about the hardest work I've ever done. Physical labor. Sure. With no pay. Except a smile. Except a smile. That's why.
Judy Howard just described what it's like to handle apples all day. Judy Howard is just one of the 140 members of the Junior League of Huntsville who each year at this time take on the responsibility of selling as many red delicious apples as possible. Friday, October 25th is officially, here in Huntsville, Apple Annie Day, a day when these ladies will be selling their red delicious apples. Bunches and bunches of them.
Hard, isn't it?
Now, what is the Junior League all about with these apples?
How you like them apples? My mother always told me don't talk with food in your mouth. And through the years, we have raised $121,000. And the money all goes to projects that are in Madison County. It's good, isn't it? And for example, last year we gave $5,000 to Panoply and approximately $5,000 to Kids on the Block.
This is the 14th consecutive year these so-called laborers of the Junior League of Huntsville have taken on the Apple Annie project.
Early Friday morning, these ladies of the Junior League will be working the streets, pushing their goods.
They're good!
I told you, you do very good. Help them out all you can. It all goes for a good cause. In Huntsville, getting ready for Apple Annie Day. Country Rover, one more time. Jamie Cooper, what?
They're good!
Thank you.
Because that album has just now shipped platinum. That's over 1 million units.
Yesterday was quite a day for America's most popular group. The boys we know from Fort Payne is Alabama. The announcement that their new Christmas album had just been released platinum from RCA Records and that they now have just recorded their 18th consecutive #1 single, an accomplishment never achieved in country music before. There was a time, however, when things weren't this good. In 1981, this was the Alabama fan club, all of it. Later, this was the site, but not for long. As the popularity of the band grew, so did the fan club. This former Chevrolet dealership today serves as the 47,000 square foot home of the Alabama fan club and its 265,000 members across the country.
Now, what's the newest line of Alabama wardrobe?
The newest line is our old-timer Long Johns. We have them in various colors. We have pink, cranberry, black, red.
Gaynell Pitts, manager of the fan club, says this is more like Alabama headquarters, and though they have lots of things for sale, some things in life are still free.
When people say that there's nothing free anymore, we do have free bumper stickers, buttons, free membership to the fan club, free newsletters.
Yesterday was also the official opening of the Alabama Museum, a home for awards and personal items that the band has collected over the years.
If you can get the name Alabama on it, like these cards, watch, garter, this thing, there's a good chance you can find it here at the Alabama Fan Club. Got anything else? In Fort Payne, the Alabama Fan Club, I'm your country rover, Jamie Cooper. I need these towels right here. Thanks. Some house. I wonder if Jeff's at home. Can Jeff come out and play? Hey, come on in.
Jeff Cook always liked the way the old Fort Payne Depot looked. With that in mind, his new house is somewhat similar, only quite a bit larger. Cook's house, which he hopes to move into in several weeks, is a real showpiece.
This is Josie's office. What she needs an office for, I don't know, but I like the clouds and the sky on that wall.
With over 13,000 square feet and 26 rooms, not counting the 3,600 square foot 5-car garage with sauna, workshop, and whirlpool, plus a pool outside, Cook's home consists of some 1,568 tons of DeKalb County limestone rock. Why does anyone, unless they have 3 dozen kids, need a house this large?
I never thought I'd have any reason to have a house like this. I still don't, but it's, you know, all the little conveniences that I always wanted. You know, I wish this bathroom was bigger. I wish the kitchen was bigger. I wish I had a phone in this room. I tried to do all of that when I did, you know, one good shot at it.
Cook's favorite room is his audio-visual room. My favorite was the kitchen. Not the main kitchen, the Japanese kitchen.
35 miles to Gadsden, 60 or 70 to Huntsville. And Chattanooga's, you got to go all the way through Chattanooga to get the one they got. So I like Japanese food, and I like to cook it. I can't do the show. I lose a lot of customers that way. But
this, believe it or not, is not the largest house in Fort Payne. Teddy Gentry's is. In Fort Payne, I'm your country rover, Jamie Cooper. Heidi, Chief, Louie, and Snipper all have one thing in common. They all are patients at one of the largest, if not the nicest, animal clinics in the country, the Fayetteville Animal Clinic.
What's Heidi doing or not doing? She's sick?
Okay. She started limping 2 or 3 days ago, and we just didn't pay too much attention to her, but she now has this red swelling.
With 7 doctors on staff, all are Auburn graduates, this animal clinic is capable of handling both large and small animals, something very few clinics anywhere are capable of doing.
We can handle any animal. We don't do any zoo practice, but other than that, anything smaller than, I guess, a giraffe we can handle pretty well. So everything that we treat is really from our area around here. We get referrals from as far away as probably 150 miles. But most of the things are within a 30-mile radius, and it's things that are the common things that are on farms here and people's household pets and farm pets also.
This clinic looks and operates like most people hospitals. Exam rooms, isolation, a pharmacy, even an exercise yard, plus several operating rooms for surgery for both small and large animals.
This is a large animal surgery table. It just makes it a lot easier to do a lot of the things that we used to have to do on the end of a rope and laying down on the ground.
Well, there's no doubt about it. The Fayetteville Animal Clinic here is certainly no ordinary animal hospital. The patients seem to agree. If I was sick, I wouldn't mind being here myself. In Fayetteville, I'm your country rover, Jamie Cooper.
Sheila Barnett and Zachary Pirtle could very well be the ugliest couple ever to get married. Certainly wasn't a pretty sight, the wedding of these two, but tonight, just a few hours ago, in a ceremony more appropriate for a graveyard, Sheila and Zachary tied the matrimonial knot.
That's unusual wedding. I've had a bunch of weddings, different places, but this is, if they want to get married this way, that's their prerogative.
Getting hitched on Halloween may not be for everyone, but for these two, it seemed the mortal thing to do.
We just thought it'd be a funny idea. We'd start out with it was a joke, and then it just come together as the real thing.
We're just joking around, so we get married on Halloween, we'll have a small wedding. Before we know it, it's inflated to what you see.
The newlyweds weren't the only ones dressed for the ghoulish affair. Hundreds braved the dreary weather to witness the bizarre happening.
God-forced sanction, I pronounce that you are husband and wife, in the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Ghost. Amen. You may kiss the bride now.
That may not have been a wedding made in heaven, but on a spooky Halloween night, it wasn't exactly a horror story either. The newlywed Pirtles here plan a honeymoon trip to the Smoky Mountains, but tonight you can bet there'll be plenty of neck biting going on. Congratulations and happy Halloween. Indicator, I'm your country rover, Jamie Cooper. That's some teeth you got there, I must say. Good luck. The Quarterback Club of Huntsville recently had quite a treat in store for them. Instead of their usual guest speaker being a sports figure, on this night the speaker was Frank Basil Clark, better known as Mr. Possum from Clanton, Alabama. Clark has earned the reputation of being the foremost authority on the subject of possums.
We're having a law introduced in the next session of the legislature to make it a felony to transport more than 4 possums in the state of Alabama after dark without a permit. I don't know whether you know this or not, but possum rusting, 90% of it's done after dark. You see evidence out here on these highways every morning. Possum laying dead right down the road, fell off some possum rusting pickup truck. Cattle rusting's one thing, but possum rusting got to stop.
And most of the people attending the meeting knew little about Clark's reputation, and only a few had ever enjoyed the taste of a cooked possum.
Possum's a primitive monkey. It tastes just like monkey. It's a moist meat. It's a little moist like chicken, but it might taste a little bit like roast pork.
Have you ever eaten a possum? No, I haven't.
You think you ever will?
I hope not, if I know it.
Have I ever eaten possum? Yeah. Sure I've eaten possum. Tastes like chicken. Yeah. Pretty good? Good.
Making like crazy.
You think he's pretty?
I think he's very attractive, yeah. I love the color. I can have a fur coat made of possum.
Possum was not served as the main course for dinner, much to the delight of the Huntsville Quarterback Club.
Mr. Possum here claims that he knows the answer to the world poverty situation.
He gonna get you.
Eat more possum, is that correct?
Yeah, he gonna get you.
This is a mean possum.
Turn him loose. He ain't gonna bother you if you turn him loose.
In Huntsville with Mr. Possum and Little Possum, I'm your country rover, Jamie Cooper. I don't believe I want to eat possum too much, you know?
When Brandon Henley's dog died, his dad promised him a new pet, and that's just what he got, a lovable, 8-week-old, full-blooded African lion. Now, 7-year-old Brandon may be the only kid his age to have a pet lion, but his lion Rufus is not the only growling feline in the town of New Hope. Meet Sheena, the 10-week-old lioness of Jerry James. The two somewhat unusual pets were purchased in Indiana several weeks ago. The Henleys and James hope to make Rufus and Sheena their household pets.
We plan on just riding him around, playing with him. We turn him out and he plays with the dogs now.
Is she mean?
Well, at times, if you try and confine her, she doesn't like to be held, or she doesn't like you to take away her food, you know.
The cubs were last week brought to Dr. Young's Owen Crossroads office to be declawed, a safe step in keeping a lion as a pet.
They get up to 500 pounds, the males can, and they can, declawing them will give you a sense of insecurity, really. They can grab you and knock your head off just about.
Now, in a couple of years, will you be handling this like this?
I won't.
You don't like me, do you? Just think, in a couple more years, instead of sticking my finger in his mouth, I can stick my head in his mouth. At the Wild Kingdom in Owens Crossroads, I'm your country rover. Don't be that way. Jamie Cooper, nice little kitty.
Long before Boaz was known as the outlet capital of the South, the city's so-called higher education outlet had already established itself, Snead College. Today, Snead College is known as Snead State Junior College and is the oldest junior college in the state's junior college system. Snead State is currently celebrating its 50th year as a junior college.
We're opening a museum this year. We hope to get it open in December or January to not only feature the history of Snead but of this area, because it's hard to separate Snead from the area. Our history is synonymous, I think.
Before Snead College was a college, it was a high school, supported by the Methodist Church. 81-year-old Flossie Moore and 91-year-old George Cox were students here in those early days. Cox graduated in 1915 and has fond memories of his favorite spot, the girls' dorm.
Sneak over here a lot or what?
Well, no, I didn't sneak over here a lot, but I sneaked over here occasionally. And Ms. Mack ran us out pretty early in the evening, I know. And I remember one night.
The way Miss Moore tells it, Snead in 1921 was, and still is, the place to be.
But I remember more vividly than anything that everybody was somebody over here, and it always has been.
Jamie, I would like to present you with this doctorate of sorghum sopping from Snead State University, along with a jar of sorghum. This is only the third degree that's been presented in my 8 years here.
So why did I get one? I'm an outstanding person, or?
Probably.
Thank you. I also forgot to mention I am an alumni of Snead State Junior College, though I wasn't here very long.
That doesn't matter.
That does make a difference. You attended, you're an alum.
Thank you. I attended a few classes. In Boaz, I'm your country rover, Jamie Cooper. Now, does this mean I'm available for your job?
81-year-old Luther Miller has never really been one to waste time, much less whittle it away. But for the last couple of years, Miller has been literally chained to whittling. Miller is not your ordinary whittler. Miller's specialty is wooden chains, small ones and large ones. And though he can make just about anything with one of his many pocket knives, he prefers the complicated carving it requires to make a wooden chain.
It's tedious. You got to know what you're doing.
You know what you're doing?
Yep, part of the time.
What about the other part of the time?
Well, I'll stop and take a chew tobacco.
How'd you get interested in whittling chains?
Well, I just thought I'd like it. Give me something to do. I always whittle, but I never did make nothing till here of late.
Not only does Miller make a nice chain, he also makes jewelry, including necklaces and earrings. Well, you name it, and his wife Eddie has probably worn it.
If wood ever gets as popular as gold, Luther Miller here hopes to become quite rich. Either that or become the spokesman for Levi Garrett chewing tobacco. Whichever, right?
Yeah.
Eat your heart out, Mr. T, before the termites get you. In Iberville, I'm your country rover, Jamie Cooper.
In the 1920s and 30s, the small town of Kelso, Tennessee was practically booming. Passenger trains made frequent stops here, and a stockyard was located right beside the tracks. And the guy reaping the benefits of prosperity was Raymond Gray, proprietor of Raymond Gray General Merchandise. Gray opened this store in this same building in 1925 after he quit farming. Today, at 90 years old, he's still going strong.
How is the store business in Kelso, Tennessee these days?
It's fairly good. Pretty fair.
Pretty fair?
Yeah, pretty good.
The last passenger train ran through Kelso in 1961, and today less than 100 call Kelso home. But through it all, Raymond Gray has kept his store open. There have been others, but his is the only one to survive. You won't find a whole lot of merchandise in Gray's grocery, but you will find his most popular item.
Beanie weenies is the biggest item I got.
What?
Beanie weenies and
Gray doesn't plan on retiring anytime soon, but he does close about 2 hours daily for lunch.
The way Raymond Gray has it figured, the only way he's been able to stay open when all the other stores have failed is quite simple. He just didn't want to go back to farming. In Kelso, Tennessee, I'm your country rover, Jamie Cooper.
I can't do it very well with the dentures.
Finest St. John barely has enough strength these days to blow one of his many whistles from his collection. There was a time, however, when St. John's plumbing shop in Guntersville was literally steaming with activity. The 73-year-old St. John has been collecting antique steam engines since 1936. His fascination for steam goes back a long way.
My daddy was a boilermaker and all that stuff on the railroad, and I had a chance to piddle around and follow him around up and down the tracks, stayed there in black all the time. I guess it got my skin.
These days, St. John's steam engines sit idle, waiting for a buyer. Because of poor health, St. John has his entire collection for sale. But his love for steam will linger forever.
You're going to miss hearing those whistles, bro.
Oh, yeah. I miss that. Yeah, I wake up now and hear them blowing, but you can't get to them, though. That's just one of those things. It's fading away as far as whistle goes, because people get too nervous. Some people want you to not blow a whistle because it makes them nervous if you're out on a parade. And that's a big part of it, making a racket.
Finest St. John has always been full of energy. Unfortunately, these days, he's running out of steam. In Guntersville, I'm your country rover, Jamie Cooper.
One of the major sporting events in Huntsville took place Saturday, and only a handful of faithful fans were on hand to witness the event. It's called the Turkey Bowl, and for the past 20 years, the game has symbolized the end of another exciting football season.
Everybody got a mouthpiece now? All right, y'all ready to go? 2, 4, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Okay. Right team, you ready? Yeah! All right, here we go.
This year's big game pitted the undefeated Northwest Hawaii Warriors against the Redstone Eagles. There were no refrigerator periods or Walter Paytons on the field, only 6- and 7-year-olds playing their hearts out on this a rainy Saturday morning.
It's exciting. It's just really exciting to watch them because they've worked so hard and they try real hard.
Did you get into it?
Yeah, I get into it. I like it.
What the game may have lacked in skill is more than made up for in excitement.
It may not be the Super Bowl, but just don't try to tell that to any of the fans here because, believe me, the Turkey Bowl is much more exciting than watching an Atlanta Falcons football game. In Huntsville, I'm your country rover, Jamie Cooper.
Dudley McFarland has the most unique custodian job of any in the Madison County school system. McFarland, custodian at Buckhorn High School, recently acquired a new responsibility, caring for the school mascot, Bucky, a 2-year-old 8-point buck.
Well, how is it maintaining the deer?
It's easy. We just keep him feed in his troughs and water. Just stay out here and play with him. That's the biggest thing. Kids feeds him most of his food.
What does he eat?
He eats corn, soybeans, Milo, apples. Main dish is cigarettes and hot peppers.
Is he mean?
He's not too mean. He likes to play, likes to rub his horns.
Since Buckhorn is known as the Bucks, it seemed only appropriate to name their new mascot Bucky. In his new fenced-in home behind the school, Bucky spends the biggest part of his day entertaining students.
He sheds his horns. We plan on putting a halter on him, leading him, training him to lead, then use him for a mascot.
Does he know any tricks now?
He don't know no tricks. He got a chair here. He ain't learned to sit down, and he like to shove it around.
Bucky was a present to the school from the game wardens and the man who had raised Bucky from a baby.
Buckhorn High School is currently looking for a partner for old Bucky here, and any little doe will do. Right, Bucky? Come back over. We're on camera. At Buckhorn High School, country rover, Jamie Cooper.
It's not often a politician gets caught with his pants down, but that's exactly what happened to Marshall County Commission Chairman Charles Wright earlier this week. Wright was just one of the participants who showed up at West End Elementary School in Albertville to help kick off Farm City Week.
Got to have all these supplies in order to function when you're milking.
So what is that supply?
This is to wash the cow sack off after you wet it before you start milking.
With a few farm animals on the schoolyard, the 360 students of West End were treated to a few minutes of what farm life is really like. Of course, the highlight of the day was the milking demonstration put on by Wright and several others, including the most important one, Sybil.
Farm City Week is a national observance so that farm and city communities can get together and learn more about each other and try and improve the understanding that they have for each other.
So what do the kids get out of this, you know?
Well, I hope these kids here, some of them may never have had a chance to see a cow that close up and certainly not see one milk or see a pig or even a dog, an old farm dog and all. So I hope they learn something from that. And then some of these kids come from farms anyway, so they get to kind of strut their stuff too and talk about all they know.
Never have seen some of this stuff.
That's right, that's right. And some of the adults we had milking here today had never done that either, so it's a good learning process.
Easy, Sybil. Man, all I know about milking a cow is it's much harder than milking a goat, but it does require a pair of great hands. Didn't do too bad, did I? In Iberville, I'm your country rover. No, Jamie Cooper.
Chainsaw demonstrations are all basically the same, loud. The one held this weekend at the grand opening of Cooper Small Engine, some relation, in New Hope was no exception, except for one of the demonstrators. James Lowry is not exactly a wood-cutting expert, but through a unique talent that he possesses, he has earned the nickname the Chainsaw Man.
I love it.
Is that hard to do?
No, not really. Just, just you gotta know how to do it,
Now, what else do you do?
Well, I ride my motorcycle too.
Ride your motorcycle some for me.
I believe it's missing too. I believe it is.
Well, that's riding a motorcycle, right?
Well, yeah, now I got a dirt bike too.
Go ahead and crank up. James Lowry makes no bones about it. He's certainly a cut-up, even though he admits he could use a tune-up from time to time.
Get on.
In near hole, have your country over, Jamie Cooper.
Class is now in session. Back straight, arms on your legs, feet on the ground.
For some 150 Boaz elementary third graders, kids their age in colonial days had life a little different, or so they discovered during their early Pioneer Day celebration. For the past month, these 8 and 9-year-olds have been studying about what life was really like in the days of our ancestors. The culmination of their studies was this gathering of folks who still practice some of the trades of the era.
We think this is one of the best things that we've ever done at Boaz Elementary. This is a culminating activity to a month's work of studying early pioneer life and colonial life, and the children have loved it, and we feel like they've learned a lot, and we've had great community response. I think one of the most important things they're learning is the tradition that's being handed down, the older people telling them things, and I just don't think they'll ever forget this.
One day, honey, old Bull Fox and Bull Rabbit was sitting around in the woods talking the way old Bull Rabbit was, always cutting up capers, and carrying on lickety-split. Bull Rabbit getting too sassy.
One thing the students certainly learned about early pioneer days, things were much tougher back then than they are today.
I told you to quit talking in class.
Yes, ma'am. Besides, there was no television back then. In Boaz, I'm your country rover, Jamie Cooper. Get down, get down. How many times have you ever wanted to play Army soldier or maybe just look like one? Wait a minute, watch it. Well, thanks to the renewed popularity of G.I. Joe, camouflage clothing, you all right? Is now one of the newest fads.
No one could be more pleased with the rise in camouflage clothing than Sam Sotrano. Sotrano has been in the business of camouflage clothing, among other military-related items, the last 46 years. The past 21 years, Sotrano has been the sole owner of the American Army-Navy surplus store in downtown Huntsville.
Jamie, I think popularity of camouflage clothing come from first the Army going into this new Army BDU, and then that made G.I. Joe come back to life, and he came back big.
G.I. Joe the doll?
G.I. Joe the doll. Everybody's going G.I. Joe crazy.
Sotrano's business used to deal mainly in authentic used military clothing. Now only about 10% is actually used. Among the items to be found in Huntsville's first Army-Navy surplus store are original Army patches, collector items according to Sotrano, hats, boots, grenades, even Army picks and canteens. A few things you probably won't find anywhere else might include this Army stretcher for only $22.95, or maybe an ammo box, World War II helmet, sea rations, from turkey and dumplings to chicken hash, not to mention a long line of foot lockers. Nowadays, Sotrano is seeing more green than usual, thanks to the popularity of G.I. Joe. In Huntsville, I'm your country rover, Jamie Cooper. David Sumner is not exactly your average kid. He does, however, deal with a lot of so-called kids half his age. David, a 12-year-old 7th grader, is in the goat business, and for the past 3 years has been the owner and operator of David's Goat Farm. At the age of 9, David started with a herd of 10 goats. Today, his spread totals some 60. Though summer is the peak season for goats, David is in the business year-round. A good goat costs between $25 and $150 and rent for $5 a month. Goat milk is currently selling for about $8 a gallon at David's Goat Farm. What kind of businessman is he?
Hey, little man's a good businessman. Little goat man.
Is that what you call him?
Little goat man, yes sir. He'll buy, sell a goat, trade a goat. He'll do anything if anybody got any goats. He'll buy them, sell them, trade them, and sell that goat milk. He's a good salesman. Anybody come in here and buy a goat, he'll sell them one before we leave.
Just in case you're wondering what David's done with his goat money over the past 3 years, well, he put it here in his game room. David, can I borrow another quarter? Get your blood pressure up.
With a setup that will rival almost any arcade, David and his family spend endless hours enjoying the benefits of the goat business. And yes, it does cost a quarter to play each game. No one gets David's goat for nothing. In Albertville, I'm your country rover, Jamie Cooper.
There's Railroad and Bank.
Where's the bank?
Right here, Bank Street.
Jenny and Bob Riddle have spent a lot of time the past several months preparing for a new business venture. Their preparations have not gone unnoticed. Gazing from several corners of the Riddle home are the wooden-headed house guests of the Riddles who never leave, only gather dust. Some 15 years ago, Riddle, who's known for his custom furniture making, started carving these truly lifelike figures. As his carvings grew, so did his ambition. His plan was to have his creations in their own museum. It never materialized, but his love for his work didn't diminish, only his time to create more.
You have to literally find an inspiration somewhere. And in my carvings, as it is, as strange as it may sound, most of the inspiration from each one of these came from one of the smaller things that's attached or is carved with the person. For instance, the peg leg. At one time, I didn't really visualize the Confederate soldier. I visualized I wanted to carve a peg leg, and then I carved the peg leg, and the figure grows from there.
Riddle has thousands of hours invested in his statues, and someday, when he retires, plans on picking up where he left off.
Even though these carvings will probably never make it to a museum, they will, however, be on display in a new restaurant. Simp McGee's opening sometime in February. Indicator, I'm your country rover, Jamie Cooper.
They can never be this big.
79-year-old Floyd Wills is not the only person who finds it hard to believe that their hometown of Boaz has gotten so crowded, it's hard to find a parking space. Once just a spot in the road, Boaz has now built a shopping mecca, thanks to all the outlet stores. Yesterday, the mayor, using some Boaz champagne, which happens to be Dr. Pepper since Boaz is dry, dedicated the new shopping tram. The tram, which once could have hauled half the town, will be used to transport the shoppers all over town.
The city of Boaz only has a population of some 7,300, yet last Friday, the day after Thanksgiving, 140,000 people were estimated to be shopping here in this town that's become known as the Shopper's Paradise.
Macon Roberts and his family have had a business in Boaz most of this century, and things have really changed.
I guess Boaz was a typical southern town. Everybody came to town on Saturday afternoons and did their shopping, and it was also a time of socializing. People would park their cars in a good spot in town if they could and sit and watch the people go by. And
with all the good, naturally comes just a little bit of bad. Just ask Rufus Peppers.
Well, it's about running, it's about the traffic getting back and forth across town.
You can put up with it, can't you?
Yeah, we sure can.
About ruin you, huh?
Yeah, about ruin.
In Boaz, I'm your country rover, Jamie Cooper.